It's 4:30 and we'll bring the meeting to the Dubois County Council. Have a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we got some visitors here, I think the government class of Forest Park, so I'm gonna let them introduce themselves.
I'm Kennedy Dubois. I'm Becker, and we're here from Forest Park.
Well, thank you for coming to the meeting. I think we'll start out with the minutes of the October 13th meeting, public hearing. So I think Sandy sent out those minutes. Anyone got any corrections or additions? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as proposed and written.
I'll second that motion, Mike.
Okay, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that carries.
They say you can.
Okay, next,
It says you were absent in there.
Oh.
okay, next week we got the 2022 budget adoptions. We had the hearing on October 13th, and there was really no any comments or corrections, so we're here to adopt those budgets tonight. So I think first of all, the first one here is the Dubois County budget, which was 30,000 and
30 million.
30 million, I'm sorry, and $28, $30,028,626. So I'll request a motion to approve that budget, adopt that budget.
So moved.
Charmaine, need a motion, and I have a second.
I'll second.
Becky, second. So all in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that is adopted.
Okay, make sure you check mark that you said aye.
Did you have a question about it?
Can you please say that number? 30 million.
It was 30 million, $28,626.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda here is the Dubois County Solid Waste Management District. And that budget was for $341,844. So I would request a motion to adopt that budget.
I'll make that motion.
Sonia, a motion to adopt it. Second,
I'll second.
Charmaine seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The next budget we want to adopt is the Northeast Dubois School Corporation. And that budget is $12,165,687. So I will entertain a motion to adopt that budget. Craig moved,
I'll second.
Doug seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The next budget is the Northeast Dubois County Fire Protection Fire District, and that budget is $118,100. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt that budget. Alex?
I second.
So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the last budget is the Dubois County Airport Authority. And that budget is $1,510,239.
I'll make a motion.
Doug, is there a motion to adopt that budget? And I second. Alex seconded. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That ends the budget adoption for 2022.
On the budget adoption, community corrections grant, the DOC has been doing some changing to their budget, so they've been cutting some things out. So we've advertised it for hire, but there may be some changes coming along once they finally do send her an approved grant. So I just kind of want to make you guys aware of that one.
Okay. Thanks. We're a little ahead of schedule. I don't know.
It's hard to know how long things will take. I don't see Bill here yet, so
Yeah, I have to say we're a little ahead.
I can do the,
Just a little
Can we do
bit.
the additionals?
I can do the additionals and transfers if you want me to, change that.
Sure.
Um, Stuart came to speak to you. Stuart came in and talked to you about the 911 equipment for the Jasper Police Department the last time. So we have the database system, $15,400. He's requesting an additional in the statewide 911 surcharge fund. I do have information if you want it, but he pretty much talked about it last time he was here. So
And what was that amount again? I'm sorry.
$15,400.
So does anyone have any questions on that? I'll look for a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
Craig made a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Doug seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
At the previous regular meeting, I spoke about how the ambulance was needing repairs. They were short money. The additional appropriation, we advertised for $20,000 in other services for ambulance repairs in the general fund.
Okay, so the ambulance repairs, so
I'll make the
make
motion.
a motion to, okay, Charmaine made a motion, you have a second.
Second.
Becky seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So Charmaine and Becky.
You want to continue?
Bill, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready if you are.
Okay, we're a little bit ahead of time, but if you would want to.
Sure, that'd be wonderful.
If you could, let me see, you on what you represent, because we're on YouTube.
Okay, just, sure. My name is Bill Schienefeld. I Deputy Prosecutor in charge of the Dubois County Child Support Office. I'm here this evening to request that a part-time position in my office be elevated to full-time. The request was first sent, I first appeared in front of the commissioners and they approved the position, so I'm now for you for your necessary approval in order to have this become effective. Our office is currently staffed at one part-time position and then two full-time positions, and then of course I'm the salary part-time official in charge of the department. We have an average caseload of about 950 cases that are open. About 2.5, 3 years ago, I approached the commissioners to create a third full-time position. In lieu of that, they authorized the part-time position that was created at that time. They asked me to make a good faith effort to make that work, which I did. At the time, I questioned whether it would work, but I wanted to be a good soldier, make it work. I got permission from you for the part-time position, and I did try it. What happened is when we received applications for the position, we didn't receive that many. And ones we had, we didn't receive bad applications. We received a few good applications. The first person we hired lasted maybe a couple of weeks at the max, as I recall. Second position, the person did last 2.5 years. She was a good employee, but when she voluntarily resigned, it was an amicable, her leaving was amicable. It was nothing negative, but one of the comments she made was that she felt abused in the position, in which discussion with her, because I wondered what she meant by that. And my feeling is that my interpretation of it is that she realized that she couldn't meet all the demands of the position, and it just wasn't going to work out as well as has been hoped. The position really requires, I don't know if the title of the position really is what it should be. It really almost requires paralegal skills. You have to kind of understand everything we're doing. You have to make independent decisions without always, you have to make decisions on your own as to how to handle things, what to do. You have to have all of the other skills necessary. You have to be able to prioritize. You have to meet deadlines. You have to be able to deal with the public, and sometimes the public is less than kind. So these are all things that require not an average or good employee, but really above average, a great employee, maybe a very good employee at least. And at the time, I didn't think I would be able to get that offering, not being able to offer full-time and benefits. And that was the job market we had 2.5 years ago. I think the job market now, particularly Dubois County, it's even more so, even more critical. We just had a recent department head meeting. Mr. Clisner was in attendance, Ms. Beckman was in attendance. I felt that one of the themes of the meeting among department heads was the department heads that were fully staffed were relieved. They didn't lose anybody. And a couple of the employees said, well, we're down another employee. And that just seemed to be my takeaway of some of the comments from the department heads at the meeting. So I don't think it's just my department or other employers. I think even Dubois County is having trouble keeping people. And I don't think the county jobs are bad jobs at all. I think they're great. The full-time positions are great jobs, great benefits, good salaries, but we're in the job market we're in, and I think I need to have a full-time position with benefits to get the kind of person I need in there. Get them adequately trained, properly trained, and not have to revisit, whether it's myself or a predecessor of mine in the future. Hopefully someone can be in a position for quite some time. I mean, in hindsight, again, I've said things before, and I want to thank again, everyone involved. In particular, I know some of you are more deeply involved than others, but the salary classifications, increasing the salaries, just the recent increases that presumably are built into the budget, the guidelines we were given as department heads. Now it looks like inflation is going to eat up more than what you maybe anticipated, but everything you've done, is really forward thinking, because we would really be in a mess if you really hadn't done everything you've done with respect to employee communications, salary increases, looking at salary positions and classifications. I'm really thankful for that and where we are right now. But at any rate, that's really why I'm asking to have the position elevated to full-time. There will be an incremental increase in the cost. The way it will work, based on what Sandy's advised me, and just so you kind of understand the timing on this thing, my original plan was to approach you after the first of the year, approach you and the commissioners after the first year. Everything got accelerated because the part-time employee left. And discussion in the office is, now is the time to get it full-time, so we could at least offer that, according to Sandy, the time frame, because of where we're at with the budget year and everything, the earliest will be next February, sometime in February, before we can get everything that's required to be done to have it fully funded, so that I can tell somebody, well, next February we'll be able to elevate the part-time position to full-time, assuming everything is satisfactory, and we would interview somebody now if I get your approval. And if I don't get your approval, well, again, we'll try to do the best we can. What we've done in the past, I don't think it's going to work, but I'll do what you asked me to do, and we'll advertise now for again a new continue it as a part-time position. Marky, the HR person, who of course will be assisting with this process, has asked that we start it now also. He just assumed we not wait till February, try and get it started now. If we obtain approval, and if we don't, we of course would start it sooner than later, because we've been limping along with the position not filled at all, trying to get the necessary approvals from you and the commissioners for that purpose. The incremental increases right now in the budget that ideally you approved or you will approve, will be seen shortly. It was fully funded. The position right now is funded for 29 hours. The commissioners in their approval has requested that the maximum hours be limited to 37 and a half hours a week. And of course, I'll follow that request. And presumably your approval would be with the same, whether it's with that qualification or not, doesn't matter. The commissioners have asked me to keep it there. Of course, I'll honor that approval. The normal hours for the position would be anywhere from 35 to 40. And when I did the budget, I can't recall, I don't think I've asked for 40, and I think I asked for maybe more than 35. So it's somewhere between 35 and 40. It'll be an incremental increase, of course, an incremental increase in the hours. It won't be a ton of hours. It'll be 29 going up to 37 and a half. Or maybe more than that, because I think I asked for something more than 20. No, I didn't ask for that. In that position, it'd be 29 to 37 and a half. Would be a little bit extra for FICA, and of course the extra benefits will be PERF and health insurance benefits for the full-time employee, all of which would begin in mid-February. Again, just as a reminder, the way my budget works is 66% of it is funded by the federal government through the state. So whatever incremental increase this would cost the county, you'll actually be paying 33% of it will come out of actual county funds. And the last thing two last things that I wanted to say in support of the request, and I don't want to overstate this or make promises. Filling this position is to get us where I think we need to be, so we're providing service to the citizens, and keep us, performing at a high level, which we do based on the state's criteria. but also meeting all the state's other regulations that don't necessarily have a direct impact, but we're supposed to meet them legally in terms of the regulations to how quick we process cases and what have you. But the last fiscal year for which I have figures, which was the 2019 fiscal year, the program brought into the county, and this is shared, half of it goes to the prosecutor's office, I get a quarter of it, the clerk gets a quarter of it, almost $48,500. I'm confident, I'm reasonably confident that if I had the fiscal year figures for 2020, that number's gone up. And I'd like to think that if we have a full-time position, I can get it even higher. I'm not promising that, but I think we can continue to get some of the money back that you're investing in the incremental increase in the cost of the full-time position. One last thing that I apologize for self-serving, but it proves my point, is somehow after I met with commissioners, the very next day, someone heard about the position being open, called the office, and the first and only question they asked was, is it full-time and does it offer benefits? And I said, well, I don't know. We're working on it. And she said, well, I have a full-time job already. So I said, well, I'll take your name and number, and if we're going to offer, if I'm able to offer full-time and benefits, you can submit an application. So that's my spiel. Appreciate any consideration you can give me on it, and I can answer any questions any of you may have about anything regarding the positions.
A couple questions.
Sure.
So the 33% is the county, 66% federally funded through the
Correct.
state. Does that include the health insurance? Does that include the benefits, or is it just the salary?
No, it's everything. Whatever nickel the county has to pay out for this position, no matter what it's for, is covered by that. I misstated this. 34% is the county share, and then 66% is what the federal pays on that.
And then my second question is, you mentioned that would take effect in mid-February.
Yes.
If we approve it now,
Yeah.
why?
Well, here's the problem. When we adopted the budget, it's for a part-time position. And I told him I can't advertise for 22 in 21. I have to do that for our January meeting.
Okay,
So that's why he'd have to wait until
even if we
February.
approve it now, it's
So it's really a consensus, will you do it in February so that he can proceed with a part-time and then it can change to a full-time position.
Thank you for clarifying on my foggy brain.
Yeah, because he asked me right after we did our budget stuff, and I said, it's too late for me to fix anything now, unless he could have came that next meeting, which he was gone, so he couldn't.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So are you wanting to pay the same hourly rate as the other full-time secretary?
Yes.
Just add on hours and benefits?
That's exactly
Is what
correct.
you want to do. So
Yeah,
the
that's correct.
1749, you would pay that for next year, and the 1698 would
Right.
be the rest of this year.
Right, and that's the incremental increase in cost. It'll be the extra hours plus the benefits that the county would be adding to my budget. And if I get approval, presumably I'll get with Sandy and figure out whether I need to give her numbers or whether she can do the math herself, or I'll work that out with her, so I'm not slowing her up, because obviously we would like to get it. The plan would be, if you approve it this evening or whenever you approve it, is we'll immediately advertise for the position, knowing that we can tell a potential applicant, a successful applicant, that, well, if everything's working out, I'm not going to make promises, but if you're satisfied and I'm satisfied, then you would have assurance that sometime next February we'll be able to shift it to
Or even sooner, depending on your meetings, but.
So do you think that the 9 additional hours a person works, or whatever it is more critical to reduce the workload, or just having a full-time position that's going to attract a better, longer-term employee is more critical?
the second much more than the first. I mean, both will help. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, 29 to 37 and a half, that's 8.5 hours more a week. Is that a game changer? No. Is it beneficial? Absolutely. You take that times 52, you're starting to add up. And then, you have the situation with all full-time employees, they're entitled to paid time off. I mean, that's one of the benefits that costs the county in terms of benefits for a full-time employee, which the part-time employee doesn't have. So it's a mixed bag there. What I'm hoping is that I can get the kind of candidate offering benefits that they'll pay for, they'll be worth what you're paying the extra for and the benefits for. I'll get the kind of person that I need, to fill that position. And I think that's the primary focus. The additional hours each week of working will be secondary. I mean, they're both important, but the first is more important.
So you think our pay rate for a paralegal will compete with a private firm, what they would pay, we can attract a good person?
I don't know. And just so, and I appreciate, Alec, you're kind of the new kid you are the new kid on the block, so to speak. So you weren't involved when all this was going on. But the job classifications, your brothers and sisters here can give you more information on how they were arrived at than I can. I just know what they're called, the kind of Greek to be, and I'm not quite sure how they were arrived at what they are. I just know my office administrator has one classification, and the caseworkers, if you will, in my office have a different classification. They're the same. A paralegal classification, it doesn't say paralegal, and it could be that if this doesn't work, or if I'm seeing that it's not working, that I may have to come back and say, I'm going to need to, whatever the process is, go through the process. I have a different classification, or to have classification changed. Another thing that the county did is I think was recently, and you would have been aware of that, was, and again, I thank you for this. I was able to use the process to get some additional compensation for my office administrator, who I felt really needed it. So what happened, what it is, as you may appreciate, for each job classification in the office, and I have two, this position that I'm asking to make full-time, the other full-time position, they're the same job classification. The only difference was one was part-time without benefits and one was full-time benefits. The office administrator has a different classification. I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head. But in both those classifications, there's a salary range. So what I requested was that the salary range on the lower end of the job classification be increased using the procedure that you came up with this summer, earlier this year. And I was able to get an additional level of compensation for the office administrator, which I felt was critical in rewarding that person for everything, their value in the office, and making sure they didn't leave. I'm sorry for the long answer to your short question, but bottom line is, I don't know, I'm taking this step by step. I think this is the first step. And I would think if I came in and asked to change the job classification before you did this, you would say, well, Bill, why don't you try this first? And so I'm trying this first. If it doesn't work, I'll probably be back. Hopefully that will be, and hopefully I won't be back, but we'll see.
So a clarification here on the hours work. I think what I wrote down is Michelle works 40 hours.
It seems like, both Michelle and Marianne, the other person in the office, they've been working 40-hour weeks because they're basically, two of them do the job of what would normally be 2+. Okay. So, but typically they don't work on average a 40-hour week. Now, for the budget, when I do the budget, I try not to inflate my budget and make the budget realistic. And I know that I have the ability to transfer between employees. I mean, I think when you guys look at my budget, you're kind of looking at the bottom line. And, if I have to slide somebody over because they work more hours than another employee, you probably don't care as long as I'm not exceeding the bottom line number. So there's only been 1 year that I can recall in the 40 years where I had to transfer between employees, and it was Sandy's predecessor that took care of it for me, and I didn't even have to attend the meeting because it was no big deal. So I know I have that flexibility, but I don't always put in for 40 hours because I know on average over the course of the year it's not going to be 40 hours. The other thing in my office, Mike, is because we work a minimum of 35 to 40 for full-time people, okay, and it can vary depending on what is required that week or who comes in at 4:45 or 5:45 or something, or where we are in the work week, what have you. Because the county's, work week without overtime is Monday through Friday on my office. And so you have more flexibility at the beginning of the week than you do at the end of the week. And I don't pay overtime. I have no budget for overtime, don't give comp time or anything. What happens is that when an employee in my office takes a PTO day, it's computed at 7 hours for that day. And I've discussed with them, well, on your course of your average work week over the course of the year, you probably maybe are entitled to more than 7 hours PTO. And their decision, the two people I have, the full-time people, we would rather leave it at 7. We don't want undue pressure. We want to know we work our 35 hours a week, and if we work extra, it's because it's required, not because we have to. And we'd rather leave the PTO at 7 hours per day for PTO time, and that's what my office is doing. So, everyone takes a PTO day, well, that's going to decrease the average because they're getting paid for 7 hours for a PTO day, not what they're actually, you might be able to argue that they could get 7.5 or something, but they don't want that. So that's a long answer to a short question. I hope I explained that well.
The commissioners changed this one to 37.5.
Excuse me?
The commissioners said this position would be 37.5 hours a week.
Well, my understanding was it was 37.5 maximum, that they weren't requiring me to make it 37.5.
I think that's what they said.
Well,
We'll have to clarify that then.
I'm going to want to get that clarified. I really would like the flexibility to, and I think the employer would like the flexibility of saying, you're expected to work 35 hours a week, and your comp time is going to be set up on 7 hours a PTO day. That's what it is now for the other people in my office. If we need you to work 37.5, this position, we will. And the other two people in the office, they're willing to work 40 a week if I need it. Hopefully we get back to normal. Everyone's working closer to 35 a week versus 40 a week.
That's kind of that's what led me to my question, because I kind of think also that I think the way I took it, the commissioners wanted to establish this at a 37.5-hour week. So somebody didn't complain that, they only want to work 30 hours or 32 hours, you know what I'm saying? To get the benefits, I thought the same thing. We established this, but they established this at 37.5.
I can do it that way if the feeling is that, they want to do it that way. I think my preference would be that I offer that to the other regular employees that have been there for a number of years before I take on a new person. Just figure out what the regular employees want to do. So maybe I have to have an internal discussion. Part of the problem is I was gone for that meeting and my administrator took care of it, so I didn't hear it firsthand and maybe misinterpreted it
Because that's the way, because there was quite a bit of discussion on that, honestly, so.
Yeah.
But the only thing is you don't want to advertise it for 35 hours and then you expect them to work 37.5. I think that's the thing.
What I would probably do in discussing with Marky is advertise the job 35 to 40 hours a week, or 35 to 37 hours a week, and have that discussion. Make sure that during the interview the employee knows what the expectation will be. Now this will be after, this will be next February when the employee starts. It'll be 29 hours. The 29 hours a week and the part-time, again, and it's been, be close to 3 years since I got out of the private practice of law, and my little bit of knowledge about, it used to be under the Affordable Care Act that the employee couldn't work more than 30 hours a week, or unless you offer benefits. And that's what I always understood. And I think that was one of the things Marky was going to get with the commissioners about. So there was always a limit. It was like, I have a limit of 40 hours a week. You never go over 40 hours a week, period, because I don't have overtime in my budget. And you never go, the part-time person never went over 30 hours a week, period, because we didn't want to run afoul of the Affordable Care Act.
That's fine. I'm just saying if it passes, I think you need to make sure you say that they.
Absolutely.
You don't advertise it for a 35-hour week and then it's, in the future.
Sure, I'll circle back with commissioners on that. I think, I would like to think that as long as I have flexibility among the 3 employees, that at least one of them is working 37.5 hours a week, I'd like to think that'll work. So,
Because I know that's what the minutes say too.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess Is there any other questions or discussions? Are we ready to make a hand motion to approve this? So if we are, let's all in favor of creating this full-time job, knowing it's 66% of it's paid by the federal government. Anyone say aye? Looks like it's unanimous. Okay, Bill, thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time, and for your support, and go from there. Thanks. Send you all a beautiful.
We have time. Little time.
Megan and Sheriff Tom. All right. So if you could introduce yourself.
All right.
For the,
That's all we're gonna get.
For the camera,
yes.
hi, I'm Sheriff Kleinelter with Dubois County.
I'm Megan Derlock with Community Corrections.
We're just here, we kind of went to the commissioners last week just to give you a brief update on what we presented to them and why we're here tonight. So a couple weeks ago, we got an email that came from Chad and also came from Sandy about, it's called a burn grant. I'll let Megan explain a little bit more of what the burn grant is, and then we'll kind of go into why we're here and what we're asking, so.
Yeah, so the Byrne grant, it's in memory of Edward Byrne. He established a justice reinvestment grant. And so the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute and Community Corrections is set up to apply for grants through IntelliGrants, the ICJI website. And so the Byrne grant would support things like best practices in the criminal justice world. It could be law enforcement, it could be corrections, it could be in the courts. It excludes some things like cars and things like that, but it, for the most part, is intended to go toward best practices.
And it's also the 5-year plan.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So it's a 5-year grant. It starts out at 100% funding and then stair steps down, so down to 75%, 50%, and then 25%. I believe it's 2 full years at 100% though. And so similar to what we have done with the Lilly grant, in that stair stepping fashion is kind of the same idea that we have for this particular funding opportunity. We feel like we have some good ideas to apply for this grant, but would, as we write the grant, request that the CNR tax kind of cover that stair step process as for the match for this grant. So specifically, this grant would go toward, and how we intend to write it at least, is that it would go toward funding a social work professional embedded with law enforcement and the sheriff's department.
Yes. So when this came up, I got approached by Megan and Dana about the possibility of having a social worker on staff of the sheriff's department. We didn't really know, or I didn't really know and understand how that could work, how it would be embedded into law enforcement. I didn't understand it. Well, last week and prior to the commissioners, or at the same time the commissioners meeting was going on, Dana, and then I got 2 deputies that actually attended the training, Jesus, Chief Deputy, and John Anderson, our narcotics officer, they went to training up in Bloomington about how social work could be involved in law enforcement. And it's not necessarily, do we really have an idea exactly how it would work here? But I think the consensus is it's needed and it would work. And then with this burn grant, the possibility of having it funded for 2 full years at 100%, and it's more or less where the council would have to say after 5 years, we're gonna keep it. And you guys would have to fund it at that point. It's a step down program like Megan was saying. I guess what we're really doing now is just kind of informing you, and if there's an overwhelming consensus of no, we're not gonna do it, then why are we gonna waste our time to put in for the grant or anything like that? Although it is needed, and I believe that's needed. It's the way that law enforcement is going. It's another tool that we can use. It's gonna help give the public, not necessarily the inmates. I don't necessarily know I wanna put in the inmates. we have a program that's going well there, and I don't want this to interfere with that. So it would be more into helping law enforcement with our citizens. Stuff that law enforcement comes across on a daily basis. May not be criminal in nature, but maybe the deputies don't know how to get them resources, and they could follow up with, hey, with the social worker the next morning and let them know what they responded to overnight. And maybe it's something the social worker could follow up with that person and get them into the resources, maybe quicker than they ever would have before. Because we just don't have all those resources as law enforcement at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not our world. We don't sometimes fully give that information out, or we don't know that information, but we know that maybe they need help, so we can get that social worker on board quicker.
You can actually get them help before they commit a serious crime.
Right.
Or endanger themselves or others.
Other people.
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Where would this person be housed at? Would it be
It would be with the sheriff's office, yes.
is there room for office space or,
We'll make room.
okay.
I mean, I can't sit here and tell you exactly where they would be at, but I do feel that it is a need that we will make room, yeah.
How much is the grant? What is the dollar amount for?
So we haven't,
Apply for it?
yeah, we haven't actually submitted the grant in total. What I anticipate and so I'm kind of just offering up my grant budgeting and grant narrative and that sort of experience to help get this need met. But what I expect and listening to what I've heard them say could be their need would be 2 full-time positions for a police social worker. So when you think about 2 full-time positions, I would expect it to be probably around $65,000-$70,000 per position. We have to think about equipment, of course. That person would likely need a radio. But that's something we typically work through Tammy for EMA.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I think the main thing that we did right now was be the funding for the position. I think everything else we can work through what they would need for equipment or anything like that. I think that would be, we could work through that. The main thing is just to get the approval that we can put in for the grant. There's no, like, don't waste your time, we wouldn't approve it, anything like that, so.
In our conversation with the commissioners, one of the things they said was, with the CNR tax, it's one of the things that it's intended for is to expand on services for the justice system and rehabilitation. And Craig, I'm looking at Craig, but Chad said, if you're telling us that this is what you think that this money would be best used for, I'm interested in hearing more. And the more that I think about it, it's really a resounding yes, absolutely, 100%. I cannot think of anything more important and vital as we think about how we can get people into services sooner, help prevent crime, help provide that connection from scene to service. Sometimes it's that warm handoff that gets that person into whatever it is that they need because they can't or they don't know how or haven't learned how to make that connection on their own.
If you have specific questions, that's why John and Jesus and Dana, they went to the training, and I know that they'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions that I probably don't have the answer to right now, and I don't know if Megan does, but they went to the training, they saw firsthand what it was like and how useful it would be, so I know I asked them to come if you guys had any questions for them whatsoever too.
The main question I have, being the funding side, in the grant, I don't know, we're just talking about salary right now, but, is there any way that you can write in the grant, some of the hardware type stuff they're gonna get, they need laptops or tablets or, can some of that be written into the grant? I don't know.
Vehicles cannot. I think that some of that hardware type stuff, laptops and stuff, I think can. I'd have to double check.
I'm just requesting it.
Yeah,
You can't.
absolutely, as much as we
Yeah.
can, definitely try to write it in on the front end, for sure.
You said match.
So are you talking the match then of when it goes to 75, 50, 25?
Mhm.
The first 2 years, we
No
will not
match.
be,
No match. And match really isn't even the best term to use. It would be, they'll fund 75, 20, then we fund
the step down.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like the lovely grants and stuff.
exactly, yeah.
And to clarify, you're wanting to have 2 social workers, not just 1.
I think there's a need for it.
Okay, because it just kind of sounded originally that it was just going to be a social worker and
Well, since it would be the match, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining that right, but I thought it was a match where if they will fund one position and we would fund one position. the
Yeah,
match.
that's once we get to that 50% spot, for sure.
So if you're saying 65 to 70,000 per year, times 2,
About 140,000.
okay? And the money's out there through this grant? I mean,
The money's
or
out there
could
for
they
the
say,
grant,
oh, we'll
so-
only
but
do
we
one?
have to have a sustainability plan is really, and that's the main piece. We have to have a sustainability plan. How are we gonna keep this going long term?
Right.
And I think whenever you think about need, and return on investment, it's difficult for me to think about what that return on investment could look like, because the hard numbers that we're gonna provide to you are probably going to be number of people that person responded to, or those people responded to, number of resources given, number of connections made, and that gives only a very narrow picture of the success of these positions, because what's hard to quantify is how many suicides did you prevent, and how many children's lives did you affect by getting that parent into substance abuse treatment, and how many employers have healthier employees. I mean, it's that same conversation about like any sort of rehabilitative program. I mean, if we don't have all of that follow-up, we're not gonna be able to give really hard and fast numbers until maybe later, 10 years down the road. We were talking about that, like how every once in a while we'll get people who come up to us and say, oh my gosh, you totally saved my life. Thank you so much for teaching that class, or that night that you arrested me, or whatever it is. We'll have those anecdotal stories for sure, but quantifying success is difficult, but it's $140,000 a year, I think so.
So on the other side then, Tom, you and I talked about this at one time of when the officers come in after a really rough case, that those 2 people would be there for them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But not ever going out on a domestic call.
I mean, I think maybe you guys can answer that, because I thought that was one of the things that was brought up in there.
Never
So,
mind. Hi, I'm Chief Deputy Jesus Monteris. I know they already talked a little bit about what the role would be, and that was my first question. I was a hard sell at the beginning. That's why when the conference was offered, I was blessed to go, and it completely changed my mind 100%. Honestly, at the very beginning, I was like, is she gonna ride with us and start handing out free hugs? What's that? I'm not about that. But coming from the conference, wow, it opened up a new world to mental health, that she can be there, training up officers how to deal with more of the caring side, having that limbo that you would speak to a subject on the road, or somebody that's dealing with mental health, instead of me trying to be too aggressive or too soft, and they know how to deal with them in a different way. Also, they can build rapport with that person. If we have somebody, which we do, we have citizens that constantly call about this and this and this and this. Sometimes all they need is a social work calls like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. Nothing's gonna happen. Oh, okay. Since let's say Dana told me it was okay, it's gonna be good. And it might be go for another 2 months, 3 months without hearing anything from that person. If we deal with that person, then hey Dana, can you come down and deal with this person? But if they would go out to scene with us, we would never permit them to go into a hot scene. Just like we don't allow any civilians, even if we have run along or anything, go to any hot scene. We make sure we secure the scene. And if they feel comfortable coming in and talking down to that person, or calming them down, not really talking down to them, but calming them down, building right rapport with that person, we can prevent a lot of people taken to jail, people that don't belong to jail. Maybe that's what we need, and eventually, hopefully they can build that rapport with that person again. And whenever we get that 911 calls like, hey Dana, can you go talk to this person? Do you feel safe going and talking to them? We're gonna stay outside, and sometimes the uniform, just a mere presence of the uniform amps somebody up. But if she knows that she's got radio, we're outside the door for in case anything happens, that would be great. Again, you brought up with the officers, we see a lot of stuff that goes directly to the soul. Some things that you cannot see, some things that you can unforget. And like every officer is supposed to be 10 feet tall superheroes or bricks, nothing breaks us. But there's things that do break us. And we're not going to feel comfortable with just talking to a stranger. So hopefully we have a social worker embedded in our department. We get to know that person a little bit. It's better than going to a stranger. And it doesn't even have to be deal break, like, hey, is something bothering you? Come and talk to me. Or, hey, do you want to grab lunch? Let's go talk about something. It's something not casual, but yet you're still getting that emotion out and somebody's hearing you out. She can be at headquarters for mental health. Again, if I get a call from a guy that's like, he wants help, but I don't know who to call. The hospital will only take so many under these guidelines. Southern Hills will only take around these guidelines. So I can call Dana, this is what I got, what can we do? And she's already going to be a directory for mental health. It's like, all right, let's go help. Let's send a phone call or letters to this place or something. Victims, they can assist victims. We're talking about domestic battery. Once we get the perpetrator outside of the house, you take him to jail, whatever, they can come in and sometimes they feel comfortable talking to somebody that's not in law enforcement. She can give them sources of like, hey, here it is if you need help for this. Here's a source if you need help for this, or if you want to talk, here's my number, just call me. So I think I said enough.
So tell me something bad about this. What would be a bad thing, or why we wouldn't do this?
I haven't foreseen anything. I tried. That's something bad is like, I'm not folding, I'm holding, and I really couldn't find anything that was bad about it. We're evolving as law enforcement nationwide. I've actually been in contact directly with the chief and assistant chief of police for Bloomington. They have several that are already embedded with law enforcement. There's a chief of police in Alexandria, Michigan City, different states are already implementing this, and a lot of them are like, how did we not do this before? So it's again, they have their role, and it's just not the role that I was thinking, the role that I was stereotyping. It's a much bigger role that we need.
So Jesus, we need you now to be talking to the kids going off to college so they come back here and bring their skills back. Because at some time, as far as social worker degrees and everything, I don't know where we stand there with Dubois County, or you've been fairly lucky bringing people and everything, but I mean, some of our kiddos back here.
Absolutely, and this is what I tell everybody. Everywhere conference we went to, this is Mayberry. This is one of the last Mayberries in the state, because you go outside of Dubois County, there's drive-bys, gun shootings. This is one of the only communities where you can walk at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and not be afraid of getting robbed, somebody stabbing you, something like anywhere in the county you can walk in and nothing's going to happen. So again, we want to try and keep it that way and evolve and hopefully get a little bit ahead of other communities and stuff like that and hit this head on before it's like, oh, we should have started this 2, 3 years ago, something that can help better our community. Yes.
You said she a lot. Are we gonna hire a female for sure? I mean,
Well, that's what I told Dana. Dana works in work release. She's not a participant. She works at work release. I introduced her up there as she works in work release. They're like, oh, great, you brought a participant. No, she actually works for work release. But I believe we have her in mind. She's been spearheading a lot of this. And I actually joked with her. I was like, hey, thanks for the help, but we're going to go somewhere else with this. So that's who I believe. And again, being around her personality, her goals, and just feeling her out on how she would deal with certain things, I feel very comfortable that she would be great in our department.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how you landed on 2? Like how you base the need on, what the need is that precipitated 2 full-time?
Just by talking to the officers, going through old call sheets, stuff that I had in my mind, since I kind of know a little bit more about what is where I could see them being useful at. And it's not, like I said, it's not in the jail, but it's more of what the deputies do. And then just by going through call sheets and looking at to this night, okay, I could have seen where they would have followed up, or they would have followed up, and just nothing really landed me onto specifically, but I think there's more there than one can handle. And since we don't know how it's going to evolve, we just all can agree that it's going to evolve. I don't want to bring one person in and just get overwhelmed, because I think it could get there quickly.
And that's actually one of the things that I did ask some of the chiefs up there, because they're catching everything. They're seeing the worst, they're seeing some of the bad and everything. And for law enforcement, we have other officers that we can kind of talk to. We kind of share the same thing, but for one person to catch it all is like, what's your out? And maybe that's where two would be good, where they can talk things out if there's things that bother them, or they just went to a scene with us where it's the first time that they've seen something like that. They can talk between each other and learn how to help us cope with situations like that. Again, also on the safety side, if they go out to a call, it's sometimes better to go into as well. Like, there's really not a need for an officer, but they would feel more comfortable with somebody else. Working pairs would be great. Just like in the military, everywhere you went, you had a battle buddy. And you go to the bathroom, you go with them. You go to a call, you go with them. And that's where I would see two of them. And then they can share. And maybe one builds a better relationship with me and another one builds a better relationship with Tom. You're always going to have that connection with somebody that you can tell all your feelings to Tom, but you can't tell your feelings to me. I think that would play a key in that too.
I think my main concern is, we talk as if the CNR tax is just gonna be there forever and it has a sunset to it. So just thinking ahead to, okay, we have these positions, how, the tax is sunsetted and when next, how do we, carry that on? What fund is gonna take over
We can't create a bunch of positions and eventually not expect to have to find some other funding.
I'm just thinking that I'm not gonna be on the council in it's less than 20 years now, but it's gonna be something, the future council's gonna have to put their arms around that if we fund it. And I'm not saying they're not.
Right, I totally,
Just thinking ahead.
we get it, totally get it.
Absolutely.
So Jesus, do you feel like it's important that the people who are chosen for this position, they have to be living in Dubois County? Is that or be nearby to be, I guess, on call, or is that important, or am I reading into it?
That's a loaded question. I would say it's definitely important. Nothing's mandatory, but I think it would be important for you to know your community. Different communities are different. What we do in Dubois County, we might not do in Crawford County. What they do there, they might not do in Orange County. I think it'd be important. It would only help knowing the people. Because again, this is one of the last communities where you can go to Walmart and it's like a reunion. Hey neighbor, hey high school. Like, you will run into somebody in Dubois County. I think seeing that familiar face, I think it would definitely help. But it's not mandatory, I wouldn't think.
Did you guys explore the scheduling, like how many hours the person be working, or would they work? Kind of like, you guys don't really have a set. Your work week is 12 hours. It's 48 hours every other week or something like that, right?
Yeah,
It's not a set 40-hour week. So would theirs kind of mirror or would they just be full-time 40 hours a week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 9 to 5?
That's how I have
or
envisioned.
something like that.
Is
It'd just
more
be
of
a
a
regular, more office hour type
Yes.
of schedule.
You have to think too, like, if you're gonna connect some of these services, those services have to be open to
Right.
connect them with a lot of times too. So at least, especially initially, like building that capacity, you're gonna have to start with those business hours. Like, maybe eventually it grows and evolves to a place
That's
where
what
we
I
have
was saying.
this
He was saying
connection.
about bouncing ideas or about
Yeah.
talking and stuff like that. So, with your work session, I didn't know if there would be a flexibility there that.
And some of the chiefs I talked to, that was one of my questions too, is like, what they have been working? And they said most of the time it's 8 to 4, normal business hours and stuff. And then on the weekends, they're on call. A lot of the times they'll handle things through the phone. It's like, okay, I will call them back on Monday, or I'll meet up with them on Monday. If it's something that's severe bad, it's like, hey, we need you to come out. This guy is getting ready to lose it. Then they'll come out for that. But most of the time, the chief's advice that they did more like a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and then on the weekends, phone calls, and to the extreme, they would come out.
Well, I think with our department, everybody in our department, whether they're 8 to 4, 9 to 5, or 12-hour shifts, they understand that they could get called in and probably will sometime.
Right. I
So
didn't know if you, like I said, just made a general, this is what your schedule.
in my head, I was just going with 8 to 4.
And then with the exceptions, I understand there's exceptions and all that.
Yeah.
And all that. But I didn't know if you had a set 35 hours a week from this time, generally 40 hours a week from this time to this time. I didn't know if you guys have gone that far into thinking through the process. I know you guys.
For budgeting purposes, I anticipated doing 8 to 4, a 40-hour work week, because most of these guys do working lunches, like they work through their lunches. So that is what I anticipated budgeting.
So then what if somebody does get called out, like in the middle of the night or a weekend or something like that, is it like just salary and that's what it is, or is there?
that's how it is in our department now,
Yes.
yeah. If they get called out, or like if our admin assistant has to go up tonight to work on a computer or something of that nature, she just tells me the next day that she was up here and she just takes it off early the next day or whenever she can. It's more of a, yeah, comp time, but she doesn't really gain comp. She just takes it off within the next day or two or something to that nature. Yeah, we don't want to get into the overtime aspect of it or anything like that. But I mean, there may be a case where, they have to get overtime or something of that nature. But for the most part, we just kind of run on comp time.
When's the grant request due?
November 5th.
Hey, and then when will you fund it?
So the funding would be awarded by January 1st, and we would have to have all aspects in play no later than 60 days after funding. So we would have to have a hard deadline for March 1st. But probably sooner.
Does that give you enough time to get it all, like your job description, just to start advertising this? 'Cause
I
you
mean, we've been
start
working on
advertising
this
right
for about a month now. About a month now.
Yeah.
So we've
So
been
this
thinking about
whole
job
time you weren't
descriptions,
sold on
salary
it.
ranges, classifications.
All these things.
I missed your joke, I'm sorry.
I just said that whole time he wasn't sold on it, so.
He wasn't.
Well, not to make any fun of John or Jesus, but those are the two that I chose to go to the training because if they're going to give me their honest opinions when they got back, whether it's could be worked or not, and I think it was overwhelmingly from both of them that this was needed. So
You're tired of giving the hugs, John?
I never did do that. But I will say, from my aspect of being a narcotics detective, predominantly everyone has an addiction that I'm dealing with and or mental health. And Megan, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I was doing what I would call her because that was she could help me with that. So I would have these people, and when I would go out to meet with them and interview them, you would start hearing what their problem was, and I would say, well, we need to not do this. I need you to talk to this person. Do you want to talk to them? And they would, yes. And then I would just part ways with them and leave them with Megan, and they would go on and do whatever treatment or whatever the problem was, went with her. So it was, I didn't know it at the time, that's what it was. So when I heard about the program and you start seeing all the things that these police social workers are doing in the community and for the departments, well, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like, this is just the way that it's going. And it alleviates a lot of the calls for the police to where they can focus on police issues. Because a lot of this is follow-up, especially with victims and crimes. There was one lady the other day, and I was just assisting on it, but it was in an apartment complex, blah, blah, blah. The guy was trying to get into this apartment, and I was really concerned for this lady. And I called her husband, and we got involved in crisis connection, got a protective order in place. But you always have a little feeling like, I wonder if I could have done more, because then you're just cut out of the picture, you don't know what happens. where if you have someone in the department that can come directly to you or you go directly to them and you know what's occurring and how it's affecting them, and it's always in-house. And it's not a police issue, it's trying to help people with their problems. That's the big thing is, let's face it, I mean, just the way that things are, the state has cut out mental health there. The state's not taking care of mental health anymore. You can't get anybody into a state hospital. It's all down to county issues, the same way with the DOC. They've all left it at the county. The county is responsible for their people now. And I understand the funding part of what you're saying. I get it, it is what it is, but I mean, I can't ask you enough to do this. Like, I really feel really strongly that we need this for the residents of Dubois County to try to do our best for them. And if I didn't feel strongly about it, I wouldn't come, but I wholeheartedly mean it. Like, I really hope that you guys do this and understand the difference you can make in people's lives, especially kids. Because if it's the parents with the problem, kid can't get away from it. And like what Megan was saying about that trickle-down effect, you don't see it, you can't quantify it, you can't write it on a piece of paper that I did 10 things. You're not an accountant, you're writing out numbers. It's the things that you see them and you feel them, but you don't write them down as well, this was a success, because you don't know what the person's gonna do. Ultimately, you can meet with 10 people and they can decide to keep using methamphetamine or whatever it is they're doing, heroin. But you've got to at least have someone that's trying to help them and show them the way. And I feel like someone on our department that's doing that will have a greater impact than anything else that I know of.
All right, I think, so we really not gonna do any action here?
No, I
All
think
the information.
we kind of left it with the commissioners. Our Commissioner Blessinger said, basically put in for the grant, see what happens with that, and then come back. And we understand that they have to create the position before it can be funded. So we just talked like, well, maybe we should, we still need to come in here, let you know what's going on. And if there's an overwhelmingly negative response, then we kind of know where we stand. But that's really it, yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of what we, when we did the justice, the judicial center out there, we I think this was on our mind that we would try to do more and more of this type of thing. So, I appreciate the information. Let's just see how the grant goes.
Well, we'll keep putting in for the grant and then go from there.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All of you for taking the time. So we're running a little while out here, but, so Chelsea, are you ready then?
Yeah, are you ready? Give me a second.
So you can introduce yourself.
I sure can. Do you mind if I take this down? I'm wearing my bad mask. You can't hear me through it. Should know better. My name is Chelsea Brewer with Purdue Extension. I'm here today to talk about our office space. But I do want to pause for a moment and introduce our newest member, Lauren Fenneman. She is our 4-H assistant educator, so she is taking over a large portion of the 4-H program. We haven't had a chance to introduce you to her, so here she is. I brought her along. Lisa could not be here today. She's doing volunteer training. So I believe everybody was emailed or has received a packet. Okay. I'll be very brief then here with my presentation. We are bringing before you a request to be relocated to the old HLS building over here on 6th Street. We would like to take over the second floor, the top floor of the building. It has nearly double the square footage of what we currently are in as an office, and it would allow us to have a 50-person classroom, as well as a demonstration kitchen that could house 15 to 20, depending on how we construct the kitchen. Right now it is down to the studs. The landlord has offered to build it to our request if we gain permission for that. Rent would go up to $4,000 a month. We currently are paying $1,505. We did get a little bit creative with our budget. You can see on there we offered up the ability to scale back in a certain few categories that we felt that we could scale back in. And then Lisa Wilson has taken over an area director position, which does come with a small budget for her to essentially rent her office. Are there questions? And I understand that we probably will not get to a decision today, and that's fine. We just want to start the conversation.
You know, I personally, you know, viewed both buildings on Friday, you know, and,
Thank you.
it's, you know, and, I think we were trying to get out there earlier, but, COVID, I think, kind of stopped us.
Yeah.
To the existing facility. I guess my biggest concern on the, you know, on the lease space there is, you know, when you say they'll build it the way you want it, you know, which is, you know, business wise, I mean, it's gotta be a limit to what they, you know, I mean, they got this area, but, I see some problems with that building, and that's one of them, is to put 50 people upstairs without a second exit.
Yes, so we did actually, I say 50, but it would be maxed at 49 for fire code. That we had the general contractor, maybe he was there as we were walking through, and he did tell us that classroom had to be maxed at 49, including our educator. So I guess 48 participants could be in that building according to fire code. We will have, so there is going to be a balcony space that we will have. I asked him, you know, even if we have to fight ourselves, at least one of those throw over ladders, so that we do have that second point of exit to get out of the.
You know, so it seems that, you know,
Yeah.
that would be an issue, and
We did talk
To me,
about code, so.
I mean, because it seems like it's a dead end hall. You know, it's a dead end hallway, so you gotta go from the extreme end down to the other stairway.
Mhm.
Because the elevator, well, they're both on the same end, but they wouldn't count as an exit. So it's still a one exit upstairs.
Yes.
You know, just like up here, you know, we had issues here because we had to keep this extra exit out of here.
Okay.
And we're a lot smaller building here than that is.
Yeah.
You know, square footage wise. So I would doubt if it would pass code,
Okay.
honestly.
I have no idea. He just told me 50. We couldn't go above 50 without a second exit.
Yeah, which you know, but that's
Yeah.
just an issue I had. And then how would, you know, this, you know, I think I brought this up to Lisa, you know, how would we pay for, you know, the kitchen, the commercial kitchen space, or where would that money come from? You know, that's not.
Okay, so I actually think potentially in your conversations with Lisa, the word kitchen got thrown around too much, and suddenly our demonstration kitchen and the commercial shared kitchen space got mushed together. So they're two separate things. The demonstration kitchen would be like a little kitchenette that we could do our cooking classes in. There is the potential I would have to apply for a grant to fund that equipment. We definitely need to understand that would be something that if he's not willing to install, we would have to find the funding for that. Then there is the opportunity that we've just verbally discussed. There's nothing in written communication yet with the landlord of a downstairs space that he would turn into a commercial kitchen that we would manage for him. And as soon as he makes his rent that he wants on that space, we would get any extra revenue that we could then put into a rent savings account or something, you know, to that accord. So it would operate a lot like what we do out at the fairgrounds. So the fairgrounds, that space is rentable, and we manage those contracts for the fairgrounds. So it would be a very similar situation where people would call us to rent that space, and we would just help manage those contracts. So yeah, actually two separate things.
Well, because that's a commercial kitchen is an expensive ordeal.
Yes, yeah, so that would be installed by the landlord,
Okay.
and we would just manage it.
The other thing is, you know, which I hope you would account for is the moving expenses and the, you know, all the window treatments, which I don't know, when I brought that up, she didn't know if that was in or out, but.
Are you talking about interior window treatment?
Right, just like that, you know, I mean, you've gotta have window treatment on it.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of windows in that building.
I would imagine that the blinds would be included in the build out. That's something that I think that the landlord would probably,
That's not normal, but.
It's not normal?
That's
Oh,
furnishings normally.
when I bought a house, it was in there, so that's what I grew up with. So there's gonna be little things like that that we might have to find money ourselves for, or perhaps we, dip into other funds that we have at Extension. We get from time to time miscellaneous funding, or, we have our, I'm blanking on the name of it, permanent equipment fund. So, we all have desks. They're perfectly fine desks. They'll go with us, and maybe next year we use that and we install blinds or something,
Because
we can get creative.
Even the way that lays, it seems like it wouldn't be real workable space without blinds in there.
Mhm.
Because the sun's gonna be, blinding you when you're trying to work.
Yeah.
I'm
Any window is better than no window.
Will the landlord put in soundproof walls or something? Because when I took the tour, semis driving by or braking, it seems like that would be a challenge.
Okay, was there a lot of traffic noise for you?
I thought so.
Was there, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having a group any number of 10, 12 people, I feel like there's gonna be times where you'll have to pause because somebody's
Noise is
braking,
so
or
loud.
it's just
Sure.
I think that would be a hindrance.
Right, I'm sure we could talk about that with him. We did talk about, making sure we install carpet and a drop ceiling to kind of dampen some of the noise that you get just standing in a big open room. I think he'd be open to that. Honestly, I don't know if he was there when you guys were there, but he really,
Teddy was
anything
there.
we talked about, he's like, yeah, no problem. We want you guys here. Come on in. So I think he'd be willing to play ball if we start negotiations.
And who's the landlord? Is it Raymond?
Ryan Craig. He's with Remax. Yes.
Do you have to get permission from Purdue?
It is in the state statute that the county will provide us with office space, so we have to have county permission to sign leases, but not Purdue permission. Yeah.
I apologize for not being able to be there on Thursday. I had plans to take the kids out of town that day. But I think for me, it just seems like a really, really large space. And I know that at our board meeting, we talked about, that you want to have a place where people can come to you instead of having to go to them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong on this, but some of the programs that we're talking about, it seems like you would increase your participation by going, like to the school, for example, for those types of programs, as opposed to inviting them to a place that they're not familiar with.
So,
Talk to me more about.
yeah, because we
like-
were,
Like, in my understanding, Purdue Extension kind of, over the history of just the extension program, period, is you go to where the people are. And correct me if I'm wrong on that.
sometimes, yes, yeah. We kind of pride ourselves in being flexible, both in what we present, how long we present it. We don't say, I gotta do this in this amount of time at this place. We like to be flexible, and we pride ourselves in that. But we also feel like now is the time for rebranding. We don't have a space to call our own. We don't have a space to create anything where people will want to come to us. So it's hard to say if people will come to us because we can't even work to create that. What we're really trying to rebrand ourselves as is a learning center. So we want people to think, I'm really curious about this. I wonder if Purdue Extension has anything coming up on that. I really want to learn about making charcuterie boards because I've never made one. So I wonder if Purdue Extension has a class coming up on that. And then they look on our website, and look at that, Chelsea's doing one in the demo kitchen next Tuesday. Maybe I'll go and I'll invite some friends. So we're really trying to put a step forward in that sense as far as being a hub for people to come to and getting comfortable, or as comfortable as what you get at school or not. We are struggling a bit with identity because we do so much at the library and at the school, we're not seen as our own thing.
My question is, does that matter?
Right.
Right, but I mean, you know, the idea is
Yeah.
that we're providing just the service, you know, but I don't know. To me, I'm like, maybe it's just me,
Mhm.
who the credit goes to, it isn't quite as
Yeah.
important as that we're getting the education and the programming and support out there.
And I sometimes could see, yes, that certainly could be the case, that, you know, what does it matter where the information's coming from, and certainly we're not looking for credit necessarily, but we have a lot of people who blow off our programming because it's another thing at school, or it's just another thing at the library, or it's another thing at 4-H. And my kid's not in 4-H, but actually it's me out there doing something, or it's Kenny out there doing something. It has nothing to do with 4-H, but because it's at the fairgrounds, it's 4-H. So that's really, we're trying to be a little bit more progressive in our thoughts.
Also, we just hired a program assistant and we started showing our resources. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you guys did that. Oh, I didn't know this was an opportunity through Purdue Extension. We offer a lot of resources that the community of Dubois County is not aware of, other than we are not the 4-H office, though most people call us the 4-H office. We're the Purdue Extension office. And the resources we offer are very valuable to community. But when you're when you get to say, oh, we're under the soil and water office. Oh, we're in the basement of the FSA office. Oh, we're next to Shank Dental.
That's how everybody knows.
That's how we have to describe where we're located. We can't just say we're at the corner of this and this second floor. We have to say we're in the basement of this next to this building.
Right, but I mean, if you move over here, you'll have to say, well, I'm on the second floor of this
Yeah.
X building, you know, I mean, I understand, right? But,
Speaking of our services too, thank you for bringing up Marina, I forgot. So she is actually bilingual and is looking to develop a very robust bilingual or Spanish program for us, where she takes, because she's a program assistant, she works across program areas, so she's gonna start working and creating along with us programs in all areas for our Hispanic community. She already teaches out of the nation, and she's like, if we had a room, a classroom, I would fill it every night.
So Marina is Spanish.
Her last name is Guerrero, but I think that might be her first last name.
Okay.
I don't know the technical term.
So Chelsea, how about participation? What kind of participation, who participates in your events or your cooking classes, and how do you measure success? I think that's my question.
I really felt when Megan was like, you can't really quantify our success. And yes, we can say, we do surveys and we do measure them and say that this many people said they learned something, but then it's those anecdotal stories that really hit you home. So I serve anybody from 0 to death. I just did a program 2 weeks ago at Jasper High School called Hidden in Plain Sight. Getting ready to do one here on Wednesday again at Southbridge Middle School, and it is serving adults who want to learn about teen behavior. But then I also did this morning a nutrition class for 6th graders over at Southbridge Middle School. Tomorrow I'm going to the Southern Indiana Education Center to talk to social workers and teachers about social emotional learning. 2 weeks ago, I also went to ADK, which is a retired teachers sorority, and talked to, assuming most of them are over 65, talked to them about your brain and how to keep your brain healthy. So, jack of all trades. We really have the capacity to talk to anybody, and that's just myself. You know, Kenny is the same. He serves mostly the adult population, but he does do some kid events, and then Lauren is obviously anyone under 18.
You know, I think that maybe this is embarrassing to say, but I'll say it. But So this is my 7th year being on the council, and I think prior to being on the council, I never knew what Purdue Extension did. First of all, even I think when we first got the budget, we went, what is Purdue Extension? What is that? I don't know what it is. And to this day, I think I'm still, from time to time, until you tell me what's going on, what you're doing. How is it that you can get more people to participate? Because I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of any other that you're hosting or you're doing events. And maybe that's not me being in the right circle or something, I don't know, but
That's an issue we're trying to work on. So if we are able to have this very strategic move, we'll be able to shift our programming from right now, we work a lot on request based. So if somebody calls me and they want me to come, I absolutely will come, to more of a proactive approach where we look down, much like businesses do their annual plans or strategic plans, and be like, okay, over the next year, like we do with the budget year, here are the programs we're gonna do. We're gonna start marketing this program that's in March. We're gonna start that in December, and we're gonna get it out to these places, and just be a little bit more proactive and forward thinking. If we are not scrounging for places to be, that makes it a lot easier. We tried to hold an event at the library over fall break, and we called 3 weeks in advance of when our marketing went out to try and get a room, and it was all booked.
talking about Jasper.
Mhm. Yeah. So it complicates things a little bit to not really have a home. We kind of feel like we don't have a home. And that impact, the Purdue Extension impact, and people searching out other services that we do is kind of lost.
Is it the name? Is it Purdue Extension? Is that a name?
Not creative, IU.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is it
I'm just joking.
I don't know what, is Purdue Extension, is that a positive, spin? I mean, we talk about mental health and, we're working on doing a group home but that's a negative connotation or, so I'm trying to, is maybe Purdue Extension, is that a negative in people's eyes or ears? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I think that's set up.
I hope it's not a negative.
well, and I don't mean it as a negative, I mean as in, it's not a positive thing.
Yeah.
Which is negative.
But
I
on
think
the
it's
other
really
hand,
Yeah.
I've known about Purdue Extension with TriCap, Jan Dugan, we collaborated on programs with seniors all the time, and with the Older American Center, or with the hospital, and we have stuff going on all the time that Purdue Extension was involved in.
I think it's.
I'm not I'm not paying attention, I guess, I gotta work on myself.
I don't know what's your profession?
I do sales, promotional sales.
Okay, so I think that is the difference. Health services usually know about us. Farm and ag know about us. If you've had children involved in 4-H, you know about us. If your children aren't involved in 4-H, you don't know about us. If you don't work in any of those industries, you usually don't know that as an independent citizen, you can seek out our classes. It's not something that we have to partner in. We have public classes.
Right.
And information overload is sometimes it's hard to actually hear that, oh, there's a class coming up. Let me just carve out time on Tuesday to go to that.
Right.
So, Purdue Land Grant University, rural thing, in other states that I've been, I see the state land grant university doing the extension stuff, but they make a home for each county for these people. A lot of times it's at their fairgrounds. Why doesn't Purdue do that? And did you guys look at a permanent building structure on the fairgrounds? Because Kenny X gonna have park credits. Every farmer in this county is gonna go, I don't know we can do it there. There's more than 50 farmers that want their park credits. Just stuff like that. I mean, I think Purdue does a good job. Maybe we need to work on marketing. I'm not saying specifically in Dubois County, but they may need to work on marketing. And then they're getting into the 21st century on, we're not making lice. I mean, you guys may make lice soap one day for fun, but we're going to be doing home budgets or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. I just don't know. On the farm side, when we get these parts, manure application, credits, you get that ton of people going.
Right, and that would be something that we'd have to probably still utilize the fairgrounds or those huge events for. But this classroom would cover kind of our usual clientele, not our large events.
But no permanent structure, that's out of the option. We don't want to build something, have something we own or
It's
owns.
certainly not out of the option. Those facilities that you see in like Kentucky and Georgia, which
Vincennes has a big producer right on 41 now.
That is,
it's separate from their extension office. Their extension's kind of in
But
there,
anyway,
but it's
U of
not.
I, Illinois, go ahead.
Yeah, you should certainly go down to Kentucky if you want to see a beautiful center. Their counties have funded building them, all of these centers, to really put the extension mission at the forefront of the health of their community, because they know that
That's right.
we are kind of essentially a free-ish resource. I mean, we need housing and a little bit of a budget.
I
but-
worked with a former extension agent from UK for Davies County, so I kind of knew how they
Yeah.
interacted with the county. They're way more intertwined, it seems like, with having a good facility. And honestly, UK is better promotion, in my opinion.
They have put in effort. We don't,
I just didn't know.
there's an
Purdue-
extension in every, like all 92 Indiana counties, and each one looks different.
Yeah, I didn't know Purdue would cost share on the permanent structure on something the county or Purdue owns is what I was asking, I guess.
Fortunately, the best we can do is leases rent for an office.
Sure.
Good question.
You mentioned the classes that you already do. How is, if you were to go into a new place that had the space to do classes, how would that change the number of classes or change the classes you go to, like the middle school, you mentioned Southbridge Middle School or Jasper High School? How would that, would you still be going to all those at the same amount, or would those classes be just centered at your office there? Would you do all classes there, or would you still?
I think we would
Keep
still go
doing it.
out. We would still certainly go out. So the reason we're doing it hidden in plain sight, we actually are doing it in all 5 of the school districts, including Holy Trinity, because we want to capture a different audience every time. But then after each of those 5 sessions, we want to bring or invite all of the attendees to come to a central session. So that central session could be housed there if we have the space. We could, let's say, for instance, like Springs Valley wanted a class, but it's got to be outside of work time. Instead of calling them and be like, hey, I need you to come unlock the door for me, I can just say, that's great, let's have it over here. It's a neutral space for those employees. They're not going to be like triggered by work mode. And it's a space where they can come with the intention of learning. So much like when you walk into school, if you're not a teacher, you come with the intention of learning. It can be a similar sort of scenario where they know they're going to come and spend a really fun hour with me, and we're going to learn some stuff. Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Any more questions?
I'll just keep thinking about
Yes, please.
the increase in the amount of rent, the requirement of locking ourselves into a 5-year lease. Like, I'll just say it, I'm not comfortable with that right now. Are there other things that could be done? I saw a few things in here, other places that have been explored. I guess what my question is, like the annex building out at the fairgrounds, you know, is there any way that that building could be used, instead of a week, a year, and we could use that building permanently?
We certainly could explore all those options. As it is right now, nothing is up to code. So if we start digging around, that might mean a lot more money. Like the barns are not up to code, the commercial buildings not, the pavilions not, the exhibit buildings. So it's,
Right, but I mean, you wouldn't be like putting your offices in the cattle barn. You know what I mean? I mean, you already have events out there. Is that not true?
I don't, can use the annex, yeah.
I mean, the sport clubs are out there.
The issue is when we use those spaces, none of them are temperature controlled. And so when you use the Clover Pavilion in the winter, you have 2 large butane heaters going and you cannot hear the speaker.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is the annex building, could that building be used for the office space? You know, could we
We could certainly explore
renovate
it. I mean,
that?
we're honestly open to anything. I'm not a general contractor, I've just been told it's not up to code, so I don't know what that would mean. I don't even know how much square footage is there to tell you if it is comparable or not. I'm not opposed. We just need someone new.
We tried this
Honestly, we're not
again.
taking,
It's an old bookmobile building.
Because in 5 years, that's a lot of money. You can build
Mhm.
something for that.
Yeah.
And then it's ours, and now we're not paying a landlord for it. You know,
Yeah.
you have something at the end of 5 years.
And how much is the rent gonna go up after the 5-year contract is up?
If we could renovate it for less than $175,000, we're money ahead by doing that and owning it as opposed to renting for 5 years. You know, that's the difference of what the two rents would be. So if we could renovate that for under that amount, I think it'd be a cheaper way,
Yeah.
and it'd be something that's all centrally located where people already kind of go for some of the classes
That you could have input on layout.
that you get to kind of choose and say,
Mhm.
you know, this is what we're looking for, this is what we need.
we lose a little bit of the visual presence that a building in downtown would have, but like I said, it gets us out of our current space. We're willing to talk about anything. And we certainly have talked about this idea. And then we started exploring just what was on the market and how much does it cost even. And whenever this building came up, we really liked the central location of it, and that if you're driving literally anywhere in Jasper, you pretty much see that sign, and that's gonna really help our face value.
Sure. I mean, that all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I worked in that building before TriCap moved down to their present building.
Yeah.
We were in there.
Yeah, I mean, you see it.
You know, when I was out there, Kenny explained to me, you know, how this got started, you know, Purdue Extension, or, you know, the extension services. And, you know, he was telling me in the 1800s, late 1800s, that, you know, trains would come in and park Ferdinand and Huntingburg, and all the farmers would go there, you know, and the instructors would come and teach them, you know, what's best methods of farming and cattle raising and that kind of thing. And I think that's grown out of this, and that's kind of why I kind of hate to see, you know, everything come, you know, not to Jasper, but into one building, you know, which is, you know, to get out, to use that same idea, to go out to the schools, go to Ferdinand, go to Dubois, go to, you know, to bring these programs to them and not expect them to come here or to their location. I mean, that's one of my thoughts. You know, the state, you know, Indiana code says, you know, that you know, some of the duties is to carry on educational programs for agriculture, home economics, family living, management, public affairs, community development, recreation, conduct 4-H club, and work with youth. I mean, that's just some of them.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, these are things that I kind of agree to. I think I would like to see that either, even if it's not office space out there, to have that, maybe that meeting room out on the 4-H grounds, you know, to make that, add onto that building or do something to make that maybe a classroom. You know, that the farmers, I don't know, you know, is that 75 farmers that come, 100?
She's right. I mean, it's terrible. It's drafty. The bleachers are junk. I mean, but if you could get the offices in a big venue, and then I still think you do satellite stuff. Like I said, you do go to these schools.
Oh, yes.
All this stuff is for specific areas for specific things. But if you have a centralized area, you need a new office. We know that. But no, I'm talking 200-300 people.
Okay, so
Every bit.
So then you may have to have it.
And they have to have these. You have to have these credits, or you cannot legally do these things. You can't spray pesticide. You can't dump manure. I mean, because they want to teach you how phosphorus affects the water. So you got to build this stuff and get credits through Purdue.
Is that the Toka Lake classroom up? You know, they got it.
The side pack is not very big, but we have some meetings that I go to there. Very nice. I mean, if you could have a building or a room like the side pack center, only bigger, that would be very nice. You know, what's his name? Jason Hightower. I guess he's a Purdue.
Jason Tower.
Yeah, he's a Purdue employee, I guess, and lives there. And we need a bigger version of that, in my opinion, centrally located. To be cost effective, this rent seems a little high for maybe not the perfect tailored building, and I'm a little skeptical on how much is gonna be done the way you want it, by a renter or a landlord.
I share that. I share that with you. You know, right now, we're paying Purdue, or next year, we will be $126,940 for the contractual services, plus the rent.
Yes.
So, you know, it's getting up there, you know, the amount of money. I'm worried, I'm concerned for the taxpayer here to spend that kind of money. That's my opinion. I just think, what I see out there, I kind of like the location. That's by soil and water. You know, maybe it's a negative to you, but it's a positive to me, because you got two government type buildings in the same place. And I think to take some of this money and maybe the county can add on to it, you know, the part that you were wanting to possibly review your budget with and make some changes out there and make
To
that
our
more
current
appealing.
office?
You're right, to the current office.
Okay.
Because, you know, I know the complaint I heard from out there, women's room is not a ADA compatible,
Right.
Or accessible or whatever you know, to make some of these changes, that would be minor, the painting and cleanup and straightening up, you know, because you took over this other space, doesn't seem like it's at all utilized very efficiently, I'll just say.
We
are still-
we are still cleaning that up.
That's my
Yes,
observation, that's
yeah.
that's not a cut on you, because I know you just got it. But to try to stay conservative with this thing and see if we can't reach out to some other ideas. You know, I don't like that building because there's just, I don't like the stairs, I don't like the second floor. I just think anybody, you know, and it's gonna be tougher for them to use that building. Every time you wanna, I don't know, it just doesn't seem practical to me.
Okay.
These are my comments, these aren't the overs.
Sure.
So,
I'll share something. It was whenever I was in high school, whenever WBDC used to be up there. I was in 4-H. I had to go in and do some interview for, I don't know, livestock showing or something. And I went into the building and I was like, I don't know where to go. Like, how do I get up there? You know, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was a high schooler, but I still remember that. I still remember how confused I was on how to get up to where WBDC was.
so, I don't know, Sonia, you got anything else? Anyone else got anything to say
I
here?
do think it's a lot of money for the space. I mean, I shouldn't say for the space, it is a large space, but that is a lot of money for rent to be locked in for 5 years for the taxpayers to pay, and then after 5 years, where are we gonna be? How do we know how much the rent's going to go up? And I agree with the others.
Yeah.
Could we not do something with the money and have something we possibly own, or?
I will tell you the rent is at market value, because I did talk to him about that. I talked to actually 2 other realtors to get what a lease market value is, and this is actually market value, because we originally were talking to the old Harold buildings, we heard it bought, it's renovated, we just wanted to know what their plans were, things like that. We like the location right next to the library as far as for partnering and things like that. And their market value is a lot higher.
Yeah, I understand the location, I'm sure makes it higher.
I will say, I do not feel that we can stay in our current space. It does not provide us the opportunity to move forward as a program and to provide $126,000 worth of services that you are expecting from the taxpayers and hope to get out of our programming. So I do believe that is not the option that you choose. We are open to others, so.
I mean, in the interim, until we find a better permanent solution, I mean, could we like rent the train depot for classroom space? Just a thought.
Yeah.
You know, because it's vacant quite a bit.
Problem with the train depot is when you get a lot of people in there and there's a lot of people talking at the same time, it gets really loud really quick.
Never actually been.
outside the box, you know,
Right.
so that we can get you more classroom space so you can
And I
expand the
think
program.
if we're, as long as we have a plan and we're moving forward, we're okay still using the library, or, you know, we've got the new hotel, perhaps they have a conference center or something that we can work with.
The Hampton Inn, they have a nice room in there,
The city in the Pfaffenweiler room.
or even the room downstairs. You know, our room downstairs.
I had a class in there, little fun anecdote. They went to the courthouse sent them to the extension office.
Oh, no.
We sent them back here to the courthouse. And I had to go and chase people down in the street and be like, come over here. So, that was.
Well, hopefully that would only be like 1 or 2 times that would happen, and they're like, yes, it's the enemy across the street.
Yeah. I think there are certainly options that if we're moving forward, we can continue, but it's just not sustainable for the future, I guess, is where we're at.
I agree, something has to be done, I mean, but, if you have a rapport with some different real estate people, and they're keeping their eyes open about what's available or whatever.
The only thing is, she's saying that that's market value. So what I'm saying is if you find, you know, like you said, the Herald building, you know, they're kind of renovating that the same way, they're, you know, so it's gonna be, you know, similar rent or comparable rent.
Yeah, and they were wanting to pass on property taxes with an increase annually,
Right.
and
So-
it was,
But, and we know
Stuff I
Dubois
didn't even know
County
about
is
renting.
horrendous and how high the rents are.
yeah.
They're just, and so, you know,
So
that's why renting is tough. At the end of 5 years, what do you have?
So I guess maybe I'm the smallest person. So you explained to me why that office that you're in doesn't work.
It does not afford us the space to hold a meeting.
Okay, that, we
Much
agree
less
with
a
that because
class.
that's gonna be a meeting room someplace else.
Yes.
Okay. So,
So if we are trying to house something or do something, even, you know, I met with Marky earlier. Marky, I'll come to you. Let me get in my car and drive over so we can have this conversation. I couldn't invite him to come to me. I had to take all that time out of my day. And when you do that and you travel all over the county, I mean, I've been to Huntingburg, Ferdinand, and to the courthouse twice today. Yeah.
how's that gonna change with you in this new office space? How would that change?
I can invite people to come to me,
Okay,
you know,
so that's
not
what
paying
I'm,
mileage.
that's kind of what I'm saying here, you know, with this money or some other money maybe the county can throw in. Why not remodel that space and have a meeting room there? It seems like you've got the space. You're not using the whole back half of that building. You know, all your offices, I mean, I got a little floor plan here. I mean, all your officers are in the front, the reception's in the front, but then all that space in the back.
We have our storage room back there
Which,
and a lunchroom and what we deem as the conference room, but it can fit like 4 people.
but that's what I'm getting at, that, you know, that's big open space there by the furnace room and all that. It seems like that's just all wasted
Like the big
space.
hallway
Yeah,
area.
that's what we're talking about.
That could be somehow, you know, utilize that space. Do the people from upstairs still come down? Do they have to come down and use the restrooms?
No.
So that stairwell is really not necessary anymore.
There is another tenant in there.
I know,
Okay.
you know, maybe we can move whoever that is into an area that's in a different area there. It just seems like, you know, when I looked at it, I came up, I mean, how much space did I come up with? You know, it seems like there's I come up with about 4,000 square feet of space there. But it's not utilized properly, you know, and in this new building, it says, I come up with more square foot, but it said it's 4,252 square feet, if that's correct.
That takes out the bathrooms in the stairwell and elevator.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what I'm saying, I think the space is there, it's just not utilized properly.
Are you seeing we could work with the landlord then to see some remodeling get done so we can use the space?
Well, you know, there's 2 ways of doing that. If we ask him to say, we want all this done, he's gonna raise the rent. So maybe the county, with this funding that you came up with, this budget funding of $6,000, plus if the county would throw in, pay for it up front and let him leave the rent the same. But, we could improve the professionalism of the office, I'll say. I mean, these are just thoughts. I mean, I just don't see why we want to move on this. Pardon me?
I said I'm willing to talk about it, but I can tell you, I do not see it in my head, like, I can't picture it.
Yeah. I just think it would be.
Intimately knowing that space and.
But I think
How
he's
it
talking
is.
about if they would move walls and
Yes,
Yeah, we have-
restructure it, then,
There's a
they
back
get rid of
exit
that
back
dead
there
space,
and-
because like in the back, there's that
Mhm.
big open area that's
Yeah.
hallway, but that's a lot of space there, that if you move the walls around and stuff,
Mhm.
you could probably gain a lot more room space rather than just wasted hall space, I think is what I'm saying.
Right,
Yeah.
and I
And make
understand
a water, make a kitchenette unit, so you guys have someplace, a decent place to take a break, those kind of things,
There's no windows, so, right.
there's one.
So.
So
Well,
any
those
other,
ribbons.
any
No.
other, any
They're
other,
there.
any other negative, or any negative about the building?
About the building, we have mice and snakes and, these
Some weird
millipede
smells.
things. And,
But there again, that's housekeeping to me. We could get an exterminator in there. I mean, that's not a reason to change buildings, those type of things. I don't see it.
So another thought that I had, I mean, if we were to ever go forward with the judicial center, this whole building is open. Would we sell it? Is this a space that they could move into, the lower floor? I don't know.
And that came up in the commissioners meeting also,
Mhm.
and this was discussed.
I feel like that space is open and, there's this urgency to hurry up and make a decision about it, and for the reasons I gave earlier, I just don't feel comfortable jumping right into a 5-year lease.
if we moved in here, we would also need renovations.
Right.
But
But it would be
it
ours.
is
So we
owned,
would-
yeah, it is,
yeah.
this is owned by you, and certainly there's the space, but it would mean a lot of walls coming down. Because it's so compartmentalized that it just doesn't flow well for an education center. And I know the commissioners want to retain this room, and unfortunately, this is the largest room, so we would need it to be a classroom, right? And I don't know if y'all want to sit in desks at your council meetings.
They used to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if,
So there's,
like the third, we could move to the third floor courtroom, we can have the commissioner and council meetings over there.
I don't think any of that's been determined, because that building's gonna
okay.
need to be changed.
Right, I mean,
If they build
I
it
feel
up.
like there's so many unknowns in our future, just with our own facilities, to just say, yes, let's hurry up and let's do this real quick. And for all that, all of those things coming together in my mind, I just don't want to rush into doing this just because it's available.
Right.
I know that you guys want to get out of the basement, I know, I do.
And the beauty of the 5-year lease, when we spun it positively, was it's only 5 years. And then we can, when this is ready, move into a more permanent space.
Who wants to move every 5 years?
If it's moving from where we are, pack my bags.
Would you guys use sci-fi more if it wasn't Cusco? I feel like that building is so nice.
Yeah, I've actually never been there. Kenny's there all the time. He does use it a lot.
Fairly new build, I mean, it's probably built early 2000s, late 90s. I don't know, I just feel like if that was closer to Jasper or Huntingburg, my gosh, a lot of what you're wanting. I still think you need a new office space and something we own, that's my opinion. But as far as the big groups or medium-sized groups, I feel like if that was closer, it'd be so nice if we could use that. Venue 1408, I wonder what's gonna happen with that, I mean, it'd be too expensive to own, but that would be, for a big group, that would be a
Yeah.
nice place.
That would be a really nice place. We looked at the old Scherer Family Medicine
Yeah.
building, beautiful building. It's right across from the school. The location wasn't terrible, unless you live in Dubois. But again, it's so compartmentalized that it would mean knocking down a lot of walls to get it to a place that we need it. In the fortunate way, it's probably the opposite building walls to get it to where we want. So it's hard to try and find that perfect spot. Is there an action step that I can take for any of you?
I think the Hobby Center is another spot that has rentable open space.
Well, what about TriCap? Do they rent their big room out?
They-
I mean,
I don't know that, I know they let people, I don't know
Yeah.
if you did some work there or not, or.
With their COVID policy, you have to be escorted.
Yeah, that's a weird question right now. 'Cause COVID.
well, I mean,
Yes, in the past,
beyond
we
that,
have
I
used
just
it.
know they have a space out there.
We have
Yeah,
used it in the
conference rooms too.
So, I guess we can discuss this online. So do we want to make a motion tonight, or do we want to just take it under advisement and, decide later at our next meeting, which is a month away? So, I mean, that's a tough thing, I know Lisa told me that, they were wanting to get this, some kind of an action going with the person that's developing this, landlord there,
Yeah.
so.
He doesn't like hanging in limbo. too
Right, I
much.
mean, I don't blame him, because he wants to try to market it, so.
Well, I can tell you where I'm at. I mean, to take the limbo out, I guess I'm not comfortable with it as well, so. If we
Okay.
procrastinate another month or push it off, it's fine, that's what's necessary, but my vote will not change. That I would say that every time.
So we got about 3 people. I'm kind of against it. I really am at this point. I think we need to do something, but not this.
Okay.
So I don't know if do we want to just have a show of hands here? Just to see who's in favor of spending that kind of money? So that she can move forward? Because we're gonna kill it. I mean, we'll kill it tonight because the commissioners aren't gonna go any further with it. So is that all right to have a show of hands? You in agreement?
Against this lease, but I'm against this lease, what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about this lease only.
Right. So all in favor of not doing anything, or just not approving it, I guess, or how should I put it?
Denying the proposal.
Oh, going forward, I like going forward.
Going forward, oppose this lease, right? So all in favor of opposing this lease, say aye. So it's unanimous. So, we'll work with you anyway, on the future, and I think we ought to investigate everything that was brought up here.
Okay. What steps do you need for me to start investigating those?
Well, I'd like for you to, I think, personally, my thing is marketing this, your whole thing. Look into if we wanna, do we have the lease? You're not gonna be kicked out to the street here in January. Do you have a lease
We
gonna be
signed it every
signed?
year in December.
Pardon me?
We signed it in December.
Okay.
Is he the one where it's just a sheet of paper?
It's on a loose leaf piece of paper.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So-
It's handwritten.
So I mean, we wanna retain the space, I think, for another year until we can work this through. And I think you should actively stay involved and keep us informed. It's really a commissioner's, ours is the money end, the
Mhm.
commissioners would have to approve. it. So, but I think we ought to look at all our options,
Mhm.
just kind of what we discussed tonight, and I think
Okay.
you need to lead that.
Can I ask the price range we might be comfortable with leasing?
Well, I don't know,
I mean, obviously 4,000 was too much. Is there a?
Well, I think it's hard to do hypotheticals. I think
Yeah.
that's a big challenge.
I just, in your shop, I kind of need to know a price range.
Right.
No, okay, I'll just
Yeah,
keep
I don't know
track.
if we can give you that. I think you-
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at what, 1505 a month now, 4,000.
And that has not changed in the years that we've been there, so there's been no inflation, which is why it's so low.
Okay, why did we increase it then from like?
We increased it because it got,
But those don't add up. The 19, we approved 19 of.
18 something.
That was for part of a year, I believe.
yes,
The 19 something was for part of a year.
yes, that was for July to December.
Sorry.
But then the previous year was 14,300. That wasn't the 15,000.
Okay. That's probably right. You know, I was thinking the whole year, but that's what I'm only for like 6 months. Wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry. So
Okay. Okay.
I don't have anything
Thinking.
else. So I think if you can do what we said, I think, and bring ideas to
Do you have
us.
an advisory board or anything, or does Purdue Extension have a?
We do. It's called the Dubois County Extension Board. They, in the past, have not advised so much on location, because we've always just been in that location. They're more advisory in the form of programming needs within the county and where we need to go moving forward. They advise us on the budget. We kind of talk that over with them. It is certainly something we can start discussion on.
Is there a place I can find who all the members are? Is there a, do I go online?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I don't know the full roster though. I mean, there's a lot that.
There's 15 of them, which I can sort of email to you if you'd like.
You don't want, thank you. Thanks.
Maybe send that, you know,
So-
send it
Send it to Sandy and
she
she'll
can
forward it.
forward it on. I think that'd be good to know. So appreciate everything you do.
Thanks.
Don't.
We are looking for new members, so if anybody wants to join.
Okay.
There we go.
Thanks for all your information.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Yeah, have a good one.
So Kim, sorry we're an hour,
No,
an
no,
hour
it's
later.
okay, it's okay, and I'll be brief. I'm Kim Harris, I'm from the Office of the Attorney General. I am an outreach representative, so I do all of Southwest Indiana. So I'm just here today on behalf of the Attorney General to let you know the services that we offer, because when I started working there, I had no clue what we offered. You know, anything from the advisory division to consumer protection, you know, that ensures fair and safe commerce, to unclaimed property, which we deposit money twice a year, so make sure you're checking for that. You text money to 44032, I believe it is, and you can always check it that way. I do have some things I'm gonna leave for you and some cards in the bag, so if you guys have any questions, concerns, your constituents have any questions or concerns, you can always email me or call me. I'll call right back, email right back, I'm really good about that. Also, with this being Data Privacy Month, cybersecurity, we do have a new program now where we have someone in our office dedicated to that will come out and train you, your employees, on cybersecurity as well. So that's my spiel. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I've learned a lot about Dubois County. It's beautiful down here, by the way, because I live in Johnson County. So when I was listening to the officers talk, I thought, we moved out in Marion County. So if you know anything about Marion County, whew, it's a nightmare. So I'm so glad you guys don't have any problems down here, because Marion County is full. So it's beautiful down here. I've traveled a lot over the state of Indiana, especially the southwest part. I've seen some beautiful parts, and this is absolutely just one of the most beautiful places I've been to. So thank you so much for allowing me to come, and I'm sure I'll be back because I'm traveling all over. So if I can answer any questions, anything you guys want to ask me on here, or like I said, my card's in the bag if you want to shoot me an email on anything. But thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. Super quick.
Thanks for staying
No,
in on the
really,
extra hour.
actually, I find it, you know,
Make it worth a drive down here.
yeah, well, I was in Crawford County before I came, but I find it very interesting, just the difference, I mean, the whole state, how different counties have different issues going on. So I really actually find it very interesting, all of the things that are happening in the state. So I appreciate you guys. Let me
So
come.
you're located in Johnson County?
I live in Johnson County. Actually, I live in Burkersville. So right there on the, right past Greenwood. So it's about a 2.5-hour drive for me, which I don't mind, because I'd say that's how I gather my thoughts before I go somewhere. So, and this drive, like I said, this drive down here is just beautiful. So, especially this time of year. But thank you. I'm quick. Any questions I can answer while I'm here or anything? Anybody have any concerns?
I have one comment. I think the Attorney General's doing a good job. He's really kept me in the loop on some potential fraud and some product recall stuff. I don't know, I think his predecessor did too, but it's night and day difference from what it used to be, and I appreciate him doing that.
Absolutely not.
Seems like he's working for the state of Indiana.
He sure is. He sure is. And he truly believes in serving the whole state with a servant's heart. And so that's what I love about him. What you see is what you get with him. So he serves all Hoosiers, you know, no matter what. Which I have a lot of respect for that, because you've got some people that, you know, talk a big game in front, but then behind closed doors, he's not that way. He is very active, visiting all 92 counties. And literally when I tell you that he is everywhere,
I have never seen anything like it before. Like, he is everywhere. And I've talked to administration where they've said 6 months into attorney generals, they're usually ready to be just, done, backing off, and he's hitting it harder. So he's working for you guys as well, not just your constituents, but for you guys as well. So if you have any, concerns, questions, problems, please feel free to call me. But you're right. Evansville, did you see the big thing in Evansville that he did? 2 weeks ago, it was a huge robocall takedown. I mean, it's huge.
They were
Yeah.
basing that with Evansville numbers from India.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because robocalls are, I get them. And I work for the office. And he's like, I get them. And I'm the attorney general. So, he's really working hard for that too. So just know that anything we can do, we're here to help. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Quick and easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll leave this with, for you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're very welcome. You guys have a great evening.
Thank
You
you.
too. Be careful.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Thanks.
You are.
Is there any more interesting for you tonight?
That was all interesting.
Okay.
No, I saw more budget stuff.
This is the really fun part.
Yes, we got the corners thing with the transfers.
I have the coroner's she's running out of money in body transportation and in autopsies. So next month, I'm actually gonna come with an additional appropriation, but she's moving some money around to get some bills paid this month.
Okay.
So she wants to move $1,800 from supplies and $50 from postage to put it in body transportation.
So it's $1,850 transfer. May I have a motion to make that request? Sweet Becky. Who said, Becky?
I'll take it.
Okay,
You can do this.
You guys are messing me up here.
Okay, Doug and Becky. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes.
Was that 1,800 or
1850.
50.
Yeah, it's from supplies
From supply and
To
postage to
other
transfer.
services. Okay. And then today, Stuart came in with an issue. He's got some comp time that he can't pay down. He had an employee position vacant for 3 months. So other people took those positions, and he said he's talked to you, Craig. He's got so he needs to pay down this comp time. So he'd like to take the money that was not afforded to that employee because it's vacant and move it to a comp time line item, which he doesn't really have a comp time line item. He has an overtime, but we'd like to call it comp time overtime comp time.
Okay.
And then he'll pay out of that to get these people's position, comp time paid down, so we don't have that liability.
So it's a true transfer.
So it is a transfer from.
It's not new money, correct?
It's not new money. It's a transfer from communication officers to overtime comp time, $10,171.92. Now, with that said, then we'd have to do a salary ordinance to pay the comp time amount. So I've got both here prepared. And I'm glad you brought it to me today and not tomorrow.
So let's talk about, any questions on it, I guess, first?
Well, this is on the general fund side.
It's on the general fund side. Because this employee was paid out of the general fund side,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
the vacant position.
that I have my notes correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's
$10,171.92.
The transfer, let's vote on that first. That's for a motion.
So moved.
Show me, second. Alex, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And next, we got the salary ordinance, and that would move from the communications department to the overtime, part-time.
Well, it would just say that you are, in the salary ordinance, we can spend that comp time line item. And I have comp time will be paid at the current rate of pay, because that's what we pay.
Okay,
We don't put a specific dollar or a specific,
okay.
because you might make more than me or what vice versa, and we pay them at their current rate of pay.
So,
I'll make that motion, Mike, for the salary ordinance.
Craig made a motion, may I have a second?
I will.
Sonia seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? This is-
That's all I have. I do have, for the next meeting, we're gonna have the budget and the salary. I know last year you guys looked them over. I didn't know if you wanted to look them over again this year to get them correct, because we have a salary ordinance and a budget ordinance inside the minutes, so they're gonna be really long. I've been working on them already to get them ready. So,
You know, you've got to provide us with a total budget book, and, you know.
we will get you a new budget book. It'll just take us a little time to get it ready now that we've adopted it. Because I have 5 days to get everything uploaded into Gateway, and so that's gonna be my priority the next few days to get that done.
So the only other things I have here, and, you know, I think you've been, you know, thanks for sending out those minutes from the jail. You know, so if anybody ever has any questions, don't hesitate, you know, we can get, Mark Sharman in here to talk with us anytime. So he'd be glad to do it, so, you know, if you ever got any questions, it's going well out there, so I don't, again, I think, you know, I think Sandy was out there for a couple of meetings, and, you know, it just, seems like it's going well, and I think if we keep doing, I think the steel building's gonna be coming in, so get the thing under roof, so we can move forward. And then I think, someone brought up, you know, moving that, final meeting of the year, and I think that was responded by Sandy, and that's, you know.
Sorry, Doug.
No, that's okay.
So we'll just keep that the way it is.
I'll try to, I was thinking I might be able to call in or something like that, so send me that.
Yeah, on the Monday, we're off, so.
Well, and I would probably be able to do Tuesday as well, or like just the 28th or something, but, you know, if you guys can't do it, you can't do it.
It's
so.
just such a, I mean, I don't want my people to come in on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or, you know, their holidays.
Yeah, I understand.
Because then I end up paying them twice, so.
I didn't realize Monday was
The holiday.
that holiday, so, I mean, if Tuesday would work, that'd be fine too, but if not, then, you know, 28th work. But
I
if
think you
not,
guys always like to do it as late as you
We like to do
possibly
it,
can.
so we can get as much done and know it, we're not rushing and not
Mhm.
missing something, and we can audit and make sure.
And like
we
I
have
said, if it
done.
doesn't work, I can always try calling in and stuff like that and to, you know.
But ultimately, 4 of you is a quorum. That's, you know, to get our business done.
So we'll leave it like it is, it's been published or whatever, 29th. And then just for your information, the auditor's treasurer office window renovation was approved by the commissioners. I think they're gonna use our funds for that. So they approved $16,800 to have Universal Design do the design on it. So, you know, I don't think, they didn't come to us for any money, so I think they're gonna use our funds. I think the commissioners got control of that money, technically, so.
Sandy,
That's,
I saw on, I think it was Facebook, that you and the recorder were recognized.
I graduated. The AIC does those classes, and you get so many hours and you graduate, and then you can do more. Now Jackie's on the next level.
Very good, congratulations.
Well,
Thank you,
something we never talked about was how good the audit was. We never brought that up. That was excellent.
Well
Just doing your job.
done. Well, you're depreciated.
But you're doing it well, that's
Yes,
most
you're-
important.
Good job.
I appreciate it.
otherwise, if there's any other discussions or issues, hearing none, I'll accept the motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We missed you last meeting.
Yes,
What's
we
that?
did.
We missed you last meeting.
Who had it?
We were here all night.
We stuttered here for a long time.
It was late, it was
I had
like
to call in.
longer than it should have.
Shoot, I should have called in and said a second.